Online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. While Sam Bankman-Fried was being arraigned in the Bahamas, newly installed FTX CEO John Ray, who does
cleanup
corporate bankruptcies, most notably Enron, he was testifying before Congress on what he has found so far before a congressional committee. He says about $7 billion is missing. That's a problem. And he explained why.
The FTX group is unusual in the sense that, I've done probably a dozen large, scale bankruptcies over my career, including Enron, of course. Every one of those entities had some financial problem or another. They have some characteristics that are in common. This one is unusual, and it's unusual in the sense that literally, there's no record keeping whatsoever. It's in the absence of record keeping. Employees would communicate, invoicing and expenses on Slack, which is, essentially a way of communicating for chat rooms. They use QuickBooks, a multi-billion-dollar company using QuickBooks.
QuickBooks?
QuickBooks. Nothing against QuickBooks, very nice tool, just not for a multi-billion-dollar company. There's no independent board, right? We had one person really controlling this, no independent board. That's highly unusual in a size company this is. And it's made all more complex because we're not dealing with, widgets or something that's tangible. We're dealing with crypto. And the technological issues are made worse when you're dealing with an asset such as crypto.
What isn't complicated, though, as Ray testified, Enron was high-level executives trying to cloak transactions. This
was just
he described good old-fashioned embezzlement.
Yep, not sophisticated operation. They're just taking money,
taking client funds and using it personally, whether it was for $70 million worth of campaign donations to the Democrat Socialists or Bahamian real estate or whatever.
But, Dan, I loved when Damian Williams, he's the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, he came out and said that he was using his money to buy influence in public policy in Washington.
And all of this dirty money was used in service of Bankman-Fried's desire to buy bipartisan influence and impact the direction of public policy in Washington.
Yeah, that's not illegal. What is illegal and why he's also charged with FEC violations, campaign finance violations, is because he was making donations with using other people as pass-throughs, putting their name on money that he was passing through to particular candidates. So in addition to wire fraud and securities fraud and money laundering, and you've got the campaign finance violations. Now, speaking of Mr. Williams, why the feds chose to move on him now when he was scheduled to testify today before that same House Financial Services Committee that John Ray testified before? Why move on him now? This was a question that was raised by George Washington law professor Jonathan Turley.
Well, this is the first time in my memory that prosecutors, rather than a defense attorney, stop someone from making self-incriminating statements. This was a windfall opportunity for the prosecutors. He was willing to go forward with hours of rather hostile cross-examination on every detail in the case. Why wouldn't you want that to happen? That's all admissible. He hadn't been arrested. And yet they decided to move this rather quickly have him arrested just before he was going to take that step. He's already done great harm to himself, in my view, as a criminal defense attorney with his public statements. But this was going to be absolutely overwhelming in terms of its benefits for the prosecutors if they let him go forward. So it left a lot of us scratching our heads. I mean, why would you do that? You could just wait for a day. Maybe they'll explain that. Now, part of the motive may be that they wanted to show that they have enough evidence. They're not protecting him or delaying any action against him because of his strong Democratic connections. That could well be true. But they really did him something of a favor here by moving the schedule forward. Because he may have just if he had been testified, he could have wrapped up the case against himself.
Yeah, or maybe there's something else. I don't know, but it is very curious, and there's some arguments to the effect of from leaked pages of the testimony he was going to offer to that House committee, he was going to blame everybody in the company but himself. Well, so what? Well, how would that negatively impact the government's case against him? What, like taint the jury pool? Maybe he was duped by these other executives at FTX. I don't think so. I think it's more likely that the federal government isn't trying to protect Sam Bankman-Fried. They're trying to protect Democrats who Sam Bankman-Fried was underwriting.
Like Chewy Garcia, who's going to run for mayor, he got $200K from him.
That's the question that should be put to these prosecutors, because remember, the Department of Justice, hopelessly politicized. You're talking about U.S. Attorney here for the Southern District of New York, spending a lot of their time going after Trump organization, anybody with the last name Trump. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to give them a good government pass on this. I am going to view them with a jaundiced eye because they've earned that, and I'd like to know an answer to Professor Turley's question, because it's a good one. Why not let him testify and offer more incriminating statements in the public domain, as he has in previous interviews on Good Morning America, with the Wall Street Journal, and so forth? I don't get it. By the way, a humorous note. I love it is arraignment in the Bahamas. And by the way, I know the headlines, he's fighting extradition. Well, he's going to lose that fight.
Yeah.
For that's a joke.
And he can't post bond.
The argument for bail was
what?
His vegan diet and his ADD medication.
Well, he should have thought about that before he committed the crime.
We were talking to Jim Urio yesterday, and we came up with the Welcome Back Kotter test for investing.
Yeah.
If the person who wants to manage your money has a haircut like Juan Epstein and Welcome Back Kotter, don't give him your money. And yesterday it was like almost a Juan Epstein play, like, please excuse my son from jail, signed Sam Bankman-Fried's mom.
Well, his mom and dad are with him in the Bahamas.
For more on this, pleased to be joined by Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist and Govzilla author. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Quite a day with respect to Sam Bankman-Fried and the FTX Bankman-Fried crypto politics on the Hill. What about that? I mean, do you think it's fair, given his the check rating he was doing, legal and illegal, that
well, look,
we asked questions about why the federal government moved on him?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I think there's so many cross currents to this story, and I want to hit on two quick ones that you guys didn't mention. I think the most interesting thing about this story is, Sam Bankman-Fried, I have a grudging admiration for this man. I mean, the way he duped these idiot investors, he would literally go into these meetings and say, I care about the climate. I care about racial injustice. Oh, okay, here's $5 million. Yeah, you're a great guy. I mean, this is what the guy's brilliant. He understood how idiotic and lunatic these leftists are, that they somehow, because he thinks like they do, and he mouthed all their, platitudes, that somehow he was somebody who was going to invest their money wisely. These people were that stupid, Dan and Amy. They deserve to lose their money. I mean, my God, he was like, who was the woman who, just went to jail for the
Elizabeth Holmes
drug? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know how they did it, but people can be so stupid. And I just admire that he understood. He just basically duped these liberals out of their money.
Yeah, well,
That's
not all rich people are smart. But what's number two?
Yeah, the number two is, and by the way, I'm going to try that. Dan. I'm going to go into these meetings and say, I care about the environment. I care about racial injustice. I care about racial income inequality. Will you give me, $5 million of your money? I mean, unbelievable. Second, when we need to have a campaign to force these Democratic organizations and these Democratic candidates to give this money back to the investors and many of them were just mom and pop investors who lost, their life savings because of this. And you get these Democrats who simply are refusing to give the money back. I find that to be reprehensible.
Well, how much did President Biden get? Do we even know?
I don't know the total.
All I saw was tens of thousands.
Yeah, tens of thousands. And the woman from California who is always on the take, who's the head of.
You're going to have to be more specific. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. What's her name? She's
Maxine
been on
Waters?
that. Maxine, yes, thank you. It was, she was taking all this money. And
I know.
She took money. She took money from Fannie Mae during the crash of the housing market. I mean, she lines up with these donors. I think we just need to have a crusade to force them to. She gave huge amounts of money to the Democratic National Committee, and so that all. And if in some cases money was given to Republicans, they too should have to give that money back, and they should be legally required to do so. Look, if I put a gun to your head and steal your money, and then I give the money to a friend of mine, that friend has to give the stolen money back.
Right. Yeah. No, fair.
And you should hear Maxine Waters yesterday, all indignant about this.
This committee will not stop until we
we're not
uncover
gonna
the
stop.
full truth behind the collapse of FTX.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Tireless.
I thought of you,
Tireless.
Stephen.
Oh my God!
when I heard
Are you
that.
making that up, or is that true?
No, that's true.
No,
I was
that's true.
homesick yesterday. I watched the whole thing. I'm like,
Does that-
wow, that's
does that woman
ironic.
have absolutely no shame whatsoever.
She also, Maxine Waters also announced that she would be joining O.J. Simpson and looking for the real killers. And she's not going to stop until they're found.
No.
Stephen Moore,
Oh my
we got
God.
some good inflationary news yesterday. The dragon of inflation has been slayed by Jerome Powell, and we're right on schedule to get back to low inflation by 2025.
Yeah, I love the spiking of the football in the end zone because we got
Mission
inflation
accomplished.
all the way down to 7.1%. Woohoo! It's only the highest inflation rate in 35 years. But congratulations! I tip my hat to Joe Biden. I didn't think he could do it. And by the way, they may even get that inflation rate down below 7%. Wouldn't that
Wow.
be an amazing feat? Of course, it was 1.5% when Trump left office. So look, it is good news. Inflation is coming down. But, we've had now, since Biden came into office, prices are up 15% across the board. So this is hardly,
A victory
a
lap.
positive story for Biden. And it's caused real problem for people. You look at, I think I mentioned this last week on your show, but credit card debt is surging because people are trying to maintain their normal, shopping list and living standards. And because they keep falling behind in terms of the cost of things versus their wages, they have to go more into debt. And by the way, the worst way to go into debt is to ring up your credit card, right? Because what is the interest rate on an unpaid credit card? Like, 20%. And so, we have real problems ahead for the U.S. economy, I think. And so to be doing this kind of victory lap is a little premature. But I know we're running out of time. I got to mention one other quick thing because I think it's been on my mind, and I just wrote a column on this, but I want your listeners to be aware of this. There was a big story that was covered by CNN yesterday that the vaccine, the vaccine for COVID has saved 3 million lives. That was the estimate. Now, I actually think that's a high estimate, but even if they're up by 50%, let's say it's 1.5 million lives saved. That's a great accomplishment. Now, here's the interesting. I read the whole story, and I read the entire study itself. Guess whose name was never mentioned in that?
Dr. Fauci's.
Donald Trump.
No, Donald J. Trump. They never mentioned
Operation Warp
Speed. They never mentioned it. Now, you go back a year and a half or 2 years ago when in Trump's last 6 months in office. The media laughed at Trump. Oh, my God, we can never have a vaccine in 9 months. Hell, man, it's going to take, the New York Times said it's going to take 3 to 5 years to get a vaccine.
Well, all the Democrats said they wouldn't take the vaccine. Remember Kamala Harris? We're not taking a Trump vaccine.
They wouldn't take it. Now they're saying, oh, it saved 3 million lives, not mentioning the fact that if it had not been for Trump and Operation Warp Speed, which, by the way, Dan, you know this, was basically a deregulation program. It's like, get the government the hell out of the way, and we can get this vaccine done. And don't you think they might have just said, hey, you know what? Trump was right. He was right about getting this vaccine out the door. Now, look, I'm not telling people they should take a vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. But the truth is that those initial doses of vaccine did save a lot of lives. Thank you, Donald J. Trump. Since no one else will say it, and since I work for him, I will say it.
Stephen Moore, economist and author of Govzilla. Steve, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys, have a great week. Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
I'm Dr. Willie Wilson, and I approve his message.
2021 marked Chicago's deadliest year in a quarter century. Crimes and gang-related violence continue to increase year over year. We can stop this violent cycle by implementing trade schools for young adults, former inmates, and other Chicagoans to learn valuable skills, providing opportunity, education, and economic empowerment. Choose Dr. Willie Wilson as mayor so we can keep Chicago safe together.
I approve his message.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest